Okay, today I've got my fire going for the topic Mormons' unusual underwear, the temple garments. I'm just asking the fire to hold space for me as I try to speak from my heart. Little couple housekeeping things first before I dive into the topic. I just want to say I'm doing this first and foremost for myself, to be able to speak, to share my story. When my book came out in 2016, I had the opportunity to go to Florida and promote my book, and it was an amazing experience. I got to sign it for hundreds of people. It was easy to speak those truths. And then I came back to Utah and it was a totally different experience. Like, I had 3 people come to my first book signing, and it was clear it was not a subject people in Utah wanted to know about. And there were so many things happening in my life at the time. I never promoted my book again. And it doesn't matter what companies reached out to me, wanted to hear the story. It was just a very clear no until now. Now I do want to talk about it. And one of the reasons is I wrote the story, but there was still so much on my path, my spiritual path, for me to go through and to learn. So it just was not the right time. And now, 14 years later of being out of the church and on my shamanic spiritual path, now is the right time for me to start using my voice and speaking my story. So the timing was not right until right now. So the first and foremost reason that I'm sharing my story is for myself, to help use my voice, because it was silenced for so long as a Mormon woman. The second reason, of course, if someone is questioning the Mormon church, especially a woman in the Mormon church, if I help give her an aha moment or help her to become curious, I see that as a good thing. And the other thing I want to say about that is I truly believe that nobody can take you from your spiritual path. If your spiritual path is to be a Mormon, go for it. Like, no, what I have to say is not going to matter at all to someone who is a true believing Mormon and set and committed to that path. Nobody can change your mind but you. So I'm not out here saying things about the Mormon church trying to take anyone from their path, because I believe that is truly impossible. You will be on your spiritual path, and that is for you to decide based on your beliefs. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I have chosen to turn comments off because, people were mostly unkind people that were reaching out to me and saying things that, is their opinion. But I'm not here to have a dialogue with anybody or change anybody's mind in that way. There are other ways to contact me, and if people really wanted to reach out to me, they can do it in a private way, but not in the public way. I'm not turning comments on. So that's just what I wanted to say about that. So the Mormons' garments, the underwear. I wanted to read 1 Peter 2, verse 9. It says, "But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people." Mormons believe that this scripture is about them. They are the chosen people. They are the chosen generation spoken of in the Bible. And Mormons often are referred to as a peculiar people. And they take that label as a prideful thing, like it's a good thing. They like to be, they say there's a lot in the world, but not of the world. And it's okay that they're peculiar. And nothing is more peculiar than the garments, their underwear that they wear. So the initiatory ceremony, I've already talked about, but it is the first thing that you do as an adult in the temple course, you've either been baptized as a child or you were baptized as a convert. So baptism has been done. The initiatory ceremony is the first ceremony in the temple. Baptisms are done in church houses, or for the dead. Dead people get to be baptized in the temple, but normal people are baptized in a church house or a tabernacle. It's not something commonly done in the temple, because they want people to attend baptisms. They want people who are non-members to be present at baptisms to see that ritual. And you can't have non-Mormons in a temple setting. So baptism is something that people can watch and witness and be curious about. And then the initiatory ceremony, the washing and anointing, where you get your sacred underwear, that is done in the temple. And it's really the first important ceremony in the temple. So you're being initiated into the greater secrets of the Mormon Church. And it's a deeper, holier, special level of Mormonism. So that is where you get what they call the holy garment. There's a lot of nicknames for the garments. They're called G's sometimes. Other nicknames are polygamy panties. You have to know the secret about the garment to call them that. Polygamy panties, magic underwear. That's probably the most common one for people who are outside of the church to call them their magic underwear. They're also called your fire suit, because that is fire protection, literal fire protection from when Jesus comes and the earth gets burned. So, and they're also sometimes called like bulletproof jammies, because there are stories of Mormons saying that they physically stopped bullets, or something that was going to harm their physical body was stopped. My sister was in a car accident when she was a garment wearing Mormon, and in her belief at the time, her garments physically protected her injuries from being worse. It was a pretty horrific accident. So it didn't stop the accident from happening, but in her mind at the time, she gave that she believed her garments helped save her life. That's a very common thing for the Mormons. And that's kind of pounded into your head, that these garments are a physical protection as well as spiritual protection to keep you from satanic attacks. So the polygamy panties is because garments started out just for the men. Women were not allowed in the temple ordinances when they first began. They began for the priesthood men who were practicing polygamy. It was their secret oath of plural, that they recognized one another as polygamists, that they had entered into this concept of plural marriage, the new and everlasting covenant. So yeah, people that are in the know understand that it is because of polygamy that they have this underwear. So fire suit, we already talked about that. That is keeps you from burning, the second coming. Bulletproof undies, they really consider this a shield and armor of God. That is what this thin layer of material is to Mormons. They are shield and an armor. So from the early 1800s, 1840s, when the garment was first introduced, through 1970, 1840 to 1970, the garments were all one piece. And women were not originally intended to wear this physical clothing. They were not a part of the endowment ceremony when it first started. The endowment ceremony happens very much like Freemasonry ceremonies and rituals. So they were just for the men, and there really wasn't an intention to add the women in the beginning. So the garments did not change much for, over 100 years. And women, when they finally were allowed into the temple ceremony, they had to wear men's garments. Women's bodies are different, but garments were not made for women until 1975. So if you attended the temple in 1970 as a woman, you were still wearing a man's garment, one piece, like a jumpsuit. And by that time they had like a zipper, but originally they were held together with strings. And then it improved to buttons. I'll talk about that. So the pioneer women, as early as 1890, so 50 years after the temple garments really got introduced, the women were asking the men to change and give them garments that fit a woman's body. 1890. So all those pleas fell on deaf ears. The prophets were like, nope, can't change the garment. It is this way. It's going to stay this way. Women, doesn't matter. So in 1916, women tried again to get approval from the church for garments that fit properly for a woman's body. Some women began altering the garments. Women could sew. Women started changing them secretly to fit their body, and they got in trouble. That was considered, if you change the garment in any way, and that is still taught today, if you tuck in the shoulders or do anything, they consider that defiling the garment. So basically you're canceling out your protection if you change it and damaging the garment. So in 1916, Joseph F. Smith, related to the first Joseph Smith, he said this: garments worn by those who receive endowments must be white and of the approved pattern. They must not be altered and mutilated, and are to be worn as intended, down to the wrist and ankle and around the neck. Admission to the temple will be refused by those who do not comply with these requirements. Saints should know that the pattern of endowment garments was revealed from heaven, and the blessings promised in connection with wearing them will not be realized if any unauthorized change is made in their form or in the manner of wearing them. So that's the loophole. If the church prophets say, okay, now you can have short sleeves, now you can go sleeveless, which they just did, they just made that change, because up until this year, Mormon garments for women came to here and men. But now the church is allowing some sleeveless garments to be sold. So it was an authorized change. Women who had tucked in their garments like that so that they could wear a sleeveless top, they were defiling the garment because it hadn't officially come down from the top that was okay to have their shoulders shown. It just is another point that proves this is a man's made-up religion. It is not a true God source religion. So in 1916, women are begging for at least let us, have a shirt that fits our breasts. And the answer is no. Nope, you have to stay in the men's garment like everybody else. In 1923, by this point, both my grandparents are married in the temple and wearing the garments. And this is the first modification that really came about. The first presidency allowed a few modifications to the garment. They shortened the sleeve from the wrist to the elbow and the ankle to just below the knee. They allowed buttons instead of strings to hold it together. And it used to have a collar that went around the neck. They took away the collar. And the last thing they did was closed up the crotch. So up until this point, you just had a hole down there that you could spread to do your business, all kinds of business, right? In the early days of the church, a lot of women did not take off garments to have sex. Men didn't have to take off garments to have sex either. So sleeves many years later, sleeves were shortened from the elbow to just below the shoulder. And that's where they stayed from, that time, whenever that was. I don't know, sometime between 1923 and 1975. And then now just barely. So 1925 is when women got approved to show their shoulders. So when I went through the temple, we had 2 pieces, and they were here and to the knee. So men and women actually wore the same exact style of garments until 1965. And that is the year that endowed women in the church finally received what they had been asking for over 100 years. The design fit better, was more comfortable and compatible with a woman's body. And women did not have a top that specifically accommodated breasts until 1965. That is crazy. That is just proving it's a man running the church, not a God. I think a God would consider women's bodies, but hey, that's just me. So although they still had to wear the garment in the temple that was the men's garment when they attended the temple, when they were outside of the temple, they could wear this other garment that had the shorter sleeves. So up until 1980, it was all one piece. So you stepped into it and zipped it up. That's what I remember seeing my parents wear for, most of my life, until they, I don't think, switched to the 2-piece until later, like by the 1990s, like when I was going through. So the 2-piece finally became available in 1980. You have a top and a bottom, shorter sleeves, shorter leg lengths. So that was a much needed change. But women, nursing women, I don't know when they finally got a garment that you could nurse in. You had to just pull it down and move it out of the way. There was not an opening for you to nurse your baby. So garments have special markings, and I talked to this a little bit in another video. The markings over the breast are the compass and the square. So the right breast has the mark of the square sewn into the garment, representing justice and fairness of God. That's what they tell you that represents justice and fairness of God. The left breast has the mark of the compass, so the thing that you use to make a circle. Those 2 things are important. And that is sewn over the left breast. And they say it symbolizes Polaris, the North Star. The star, like the emblem, is supposed to guide us, right? And we're supposed to put our sights on an undeviating course to eternal life. That's what those 2 things are supposed to remind us of. Well, if you know anything about Freemasons, you know the compass and the square are also Freemasonic symbols. And other people probably use them too. It's a universal symbol. These 2 markings, the esoteric secret that they are not going to tell you. So the right side is the most important side. The right side is controlled by the left brain, analytical. It's the masculine side. So it gets the square. Well, the square is matter. Matter over spirit. The circle represents spirit. And in this physical life, they are telling you that matter is more important than spirit. And that is the subtle message that is in the garments that people do not know or understand. The male symbol, is over the female symbol. Masculine over feminine. They're not equal. The right over the left. The right path over the left path. The masculine path over the feminine path. It's really just polarity. It's not one should be over any. They should be equal. And so truthfully, when we come down into this flesh and bones, the spirit has been entombed. Spirit has been cased in flesh and bone. Spirit Matter is over spirit. That's what those symbols truly mean. Matter is over spirit. And there's a whole thing about resurrection. That's another video that I'm going to make. But the truth is, the resurrection is talking about the spirit. Because right now our spirits are entombed in flesh. And when we die, the spirit is released and goes back to source. That is the resurrection, when spirit returns to source. They put the emphasis on the physical body, and they tell us, no, 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 we're going to get our physical bodies back. That's resurrection. Zombies coming back out of the grave. They don't want you to consider the fact that your soul is who you truly are. Your spirit is who you truly are. Spirit should be over matter. Spirit should direct your physical life here in this world, and that is not the message they want you to hear. They don't want you to know the truth of who you are. That is so important. The truth of who you are is a son or a daughter of Source Creator, and that cannot be taken away. That cannot be severed. I say the power of Creator is innate. It is within you, and nothing can sever that from you. But that is not what the church wants you to believe. They want you to think that power of God is outside of you. And I discussed that in the last video that we talked about the priesthood and women's roles. If you haven't seen that video, it would be a good one to just understand that part about the priesthood power that gives the church its authority to do everything. It is a power outside of you. And that is one of the biggest deceptions of the church, is this belief that the power of God is not within you. And Jesus even said, the kingdom of God is within you. So the kingdom of God, if it is within you, that also means the power of God is within you. And that is the truth. That is the truth, I believe. And that is the truth they are trying to keep you from finding out. So those two symbols, compass and square, the right compass, marking of the square, the symbology of matter, over the symbology of spirit, which is the compass, which you use to draw the circle. It's an esoteric teaching. I know people might say that is batshit crazy. That's not what it really means. Get curious and do some research. Check out Freemasonry. Check out these esoteric symbols that they are not just, they want you to believe, oh, the compass marks Polaris. And you need to keep your eyes on a straight course like to eternal life. That's what that symbol is supposed to remind you of. But the symbol is spirit. And the symbol is, the truth of that symbol is that you, who you truly are, is a spiritual person, not this human flesh. That will come and go, but your spirit will stay. Okay, so those are two markings on the garment over the nipples of the top. The bottom, well, there is a third marking on the shirt, and that's over your navel. And it is just a straight line. And its symbol is to remind you to keep all of your passions and appetites within the boundaries the Lord has set. I want to talk about righteousness for a second here. The boundaries that the Lord has set changes with the whim of the church, just like the garments change with the whim of the church. Their policies change with the whim of the man in charge, whoever the prophet is. It's good to be a Mormon under one prophet. It's bad to be called a Mormon under this current prophet. So it changes on the whim of man. So appetites and passions within the boundaries the Lord has set, those change based upon what the prophet of the church believes at the time. Brigham Young had no problem killing people, castrating men that were in the way of, competition for more wives. There's a story of him castrating a poor young man. He wasn't the one that castrated him, right? It was just something he gave his consent to. So what is righteous and what is not righteous is not for you to decide as a Mormon. It's up to your leaders of the church who speak for God. So if in the Mormon scriptures, there's a story of Nephi. He needs scriptures for this long journey to the promised land, which is America. And God tells him to kill Laban, the owner of the scriptures at the time. And he's justified. He's justified in chopping this man's head off, putting on his clothes, and deceiving everyone, getting the scriptures, getting the one thing that he wants, and then leaving. There's no price to pay for the taking of life. That was murder. He's drunk, laying in the street, and Nephi, this strong man, comes upon him. That's how they portray Nephi as this very muscular, strong person, and Laban is this fat, lazy man. And God tells him, kill him. And Nephi struggles with it. Like, oh, I've never killed someone before. I don't know that I should do that. And God's like, nope, kill him, because it's better for you to have what he has and take the script. So it was totally justified murder. Brigham Young justified a lot of murder in his time. He justified, and many prophets after him justified, keeping the blacks out of the priesthood. And they had the same response. We don't know why. God just told us no, you can't do it yet. It's the same thing they're saying right now to the women. You know, your leadership is out of balance. We don't know why men have more leadership roles than women, but that's just the way God sees it. So this idea that the Lord sets the boundaries is really just the men in the church, the higher leaders of the men, the top people at the top of the pyramid. They decide the boundaries of the church. They decide what is right and what is wrong, and you have to listen to them and obey them. So the last marking on the garment is over the knee, over the right knee, and it is to symbolize that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is the Christ. That is why we say everyone has to be Mormon at some point. Everyone is going to be forced to bend the knee to Jesus Christ and declare that he is who he is, and then be judged. So those are things you hear in the temple about the garments, because they do walk you through these symbols, because these symbols are at the very last thing you do at the veil. You put your hands, these symbols of the compass and the square have holes in them at the veil, and you stick your hands through. So they are on your body as a constant reminder of the covenants that you made in the temple. And that point is going to be really driven home. So why do Mormons need to have this garment in the first place? What is so significant about wearing this unconventional underwear? Gordon B. Hinckley, the prophet of the church, I believe he was the 15th, but I'm not positive. He was the one that said, if Joseph Smith did not see God and the Father in the grove, our whole church rests on that concept. And if he did not see them, it's fraud. But if he did see them, it's the most wonderful thing that ever happened in the world. This man who's I'm about to quote is the same person that said that about Joseph Smith. I don't think you would ever hear another prophet make that commitment, because it gives the ultimatum. It either happened or it didn't. And I do not believe that it happened the way the church says it happened. And I do not believe, I believe that the church stands on fraud 100%, which is why I have renounced my temple covenants. And I feel 100% free and obligated to share these secret things. And I'm not the first person to share them. They've been out there for a long time, but I feel like I want to share my experience. I want to share my story, and that is why I'm revealing these things that aren't supposed to be revealed. So Gordon B. Hinckley, in a letter from the first presidency on October 10th, 1988, proclaimed, church members who have been clothed with the garment in the temple have made a covenant to wear it throughout their lives. This has been interpreted to mean that it is worn both day and night. The promise of protection and blessings is conditioned upon worthiness and faithfulness in keeping the covenant. Members of the church wear the garment as a reminder of sacred covenants they have made with the Lord, and also, this most important part, as a protection against temptation and evil. How it is worn is an outward expression of an inward commitment to follow the Savior. Follow the Savior. I'm 100% certain if there was a man named Jesus that lived and walked on earth, he did not wear a garment. He did not wear the temple Mormon garment. But the Mormons want you to believe that he did. So the temple garment is an outward expression of your inner commitment to Jesus Christ. That is truly the number one reason why Mormons wear the garment. And then second to that is they believe it is the literal shield of God and it is a protection to them. So here's where I want to talk about belief, because the only power that the garment has is the belief in it. Belief is everything. Belief is what gives everything power. So absolutely, I believe people have worn the garments and have had spiritual experiences of protection, whether it's satanic protection or a physical protection. I believe those experiences absolutely happened because of their belief. Belief is what gave the garments power. They drew on that power within themselves and they put their belief in the garment. Some people put their beliefs in crystals. I love crystals. I know some crystals are good at protection. It is all a matter of belief. I want to share just a little example of the power of belief. So after I left the Mormon church, I found an indigenous path that I was on and still on. I'm still very much a part of these indigenous ways. And I was taught by a Lakota elder, went through some teachings and trainings with them. I am a pipe carrier I was a pipe carrier from the Lakota tradition. Now I'm a pipe carrier from a different tradition. I'll explain that later. But one of the things I was able to do after I got my pipe was a vision quest. Now for the vision quest, every tribe kind of does it different. From the Lakota tribe that I was working with, the medicine man and woman that I were working with, we had to create prayer ties. I had to have 405 prayer ties. I had to have 100 in each direction. And these are all tied on one continuous string. And the prayers, or the prayer tie consists of tobacco and a prayer. You say a prayer into every square with tobacco. Say your prayer, tie it up into this string, and then you go to the next one. So I had to have 405 of those, and those prayer ties are what would create my hochika, my sacred circle that I was going to sit in for my vision quest. And you're praying into these prayer ties, asking for protection while you're on the mountain and anything else that you want to pray for in your heart. So once I completed all of the prayer ties, then I could cut the string and complete the circle, and then I folded them up very carefully. When I went on Vision Quest, it was really actually beautiful because I wore my temple dress. In this tradition, you wear all white to go on Vision Quest. And so I wore my temple dress to the mountain and to sit in my circle, my sacred circle of prayer ties, and pray for a vision, which absolutely came, and I will share that at another time. My belief in those prayer ties keeping me safe, the medicine man and woman that were with me, they set up, we also had to have sticks in each direction to hold the prayer ties up off the ground. And once the circle was put in place, I was allowed to come into the circle, and then they closed it behind me, and that sacred space was now set. According to the Lakota tradition, nothing could get inside me. It was a physical protection from bears, mountain lions, wolves, snakes. Anything that could harm me could not come in that circle. they could come in that circle, right? Physically, there's nothing there stopping them. But the idea energetically is that they won't cross that boundary. And that was my experience. I had predators circle me in the night when I was on that mountain. And I sat there. Yes, I had fear. Yes, I was scared. But I also put my faith in those prayer ties that nothing dangerous was going to cross that line, spiritually or physically, and hurt me. So what gave those prayer ties power was not outside of me. It was Creator's power within me and my belief in it that kept me safe in that circle. So that was one tradition. I was fortunate to go on Vision Quest with a different tradition. The Yosemite Seminole tradition is the last, my last teacher was from that tribe. And when I went on Vision Quest with him, this medicine man did things a little differently. And this is the pipe carrier I consider myself now from this tribe, because I had a really beautiful experience, how my pipes changed places. I'll share that at a different time. But so now I'm a pipe carrier for the Yosemite Seminole tradition from Florida, where my medicine man is from, medicine teacher. He did not make us make prayer ties for this Vision Quest. He stood in the middle and prayed and called down from Creator, energetically put energy into his staff, and then he drew a circle on the ground and called me into my sacred circle and said, okay, you sit here. As long as you are within this circle, nothing spiritually or physically can harm you. And then he went on to sit the next person on the hill. And kind of in my mind, I'm thinking, it's a circle in the sand, right? It's not going to stop a snake. It's not going to stop a bear. It's not going to stop any physical creature unless I believe my teacher and his teachings and have that same agreement with Creator, knowing that I will be protected. And I absolutely had a spiritual attack come to me in that night, and it was stopped by that circle. We were face to face with nothing in between us except the boundary that my medicine person had drawn in the sand. And I knew that spirit, that person who wanted to cause me harm, could not cross. Our belief is the power. The power is within us, not outside of us. That is something I highly disagree with the church. The church says this power comes from God. It is not within us. I disagree. I believe that all power that the Creator gives to us is within us. And we just don't know. We just don't recognize or realize that it is there for us to use. And it is all based on belief. What do you give your power to? Do you give it to the Mormon church? Do you give it to the garments? It's your free choice to give the power away or to use it within you. So it's the same reason people can carry a lucky foot and have the exact same kind of experiences as Mormons have with garments. Or a witch could use a crystal, have crystals and set up her perimeter. It is the power that we give these items. These items don't hold power in and of themselves. The garments do not hold power in and of themselves. It is the belief that the Mormon gives the power to the garment. It is their belief that draws the power from God, which is their God-given right. That power cannot be severed. That is also something I just really disagree with that they teach. If you are unrighteous, if you drink coffee, or if you do things, if you drink alcohol, that's a whole other situation. If you do things against what the church says you should be doing or don't do, say you don't pay tithing, okay, your fire suit's not a fire suit anymore. Your garments are not going to protect you when Jesus comes and the fire comes. You will burn. And they have put that power outside of you, and they don't want you to realize how powerful you truly are. The power of God, the Creator, is within you. It is your birthright as a son and daughter of God, goddess, creator, creatrix. This power of the universe, the all source, it is given to all of us. It is not something that the Mormon Church has more of, but that is what they want you to believe. So fear is the driving force behind this fallacy, this fear that if you take off your garments or if you do something wrong, you will no longer be protected. That fear is huge, because if you believe that, you can self-fulfill that prophecy. So Joan Lowry Nixon said, "Life is not easy. We all have problems, even tragedies, to deal with, and luck has nothing to do with it. Bad luck is only the superstitious excuse for those who don't have the wit to deal with the problems of life." Through this journey of religion, I have learned that you must confront fear with knowledge and wisdom rather than shielding it by superstitious actions and beliefs. Problems, difficulties, trials, and challenges come to all of us, regardless of the type of underwear we are wearing. Our underwear is insignificant when it comes to life's trials. It is our character, our values, our beliefs, and our morality that will see us through the difficult times that nurture and grow our soul. In September 1999, the Liahona magazine article entitled "The Temple Garment, an Outward Expression of an Inward Commitment" from Karios E. Asay of the Quorum of the 70 further explained it. He said, "We are at war," talking about the Mormons. "We are at war. Our enemy is not an invading army from a bordering nation or navy or some overseas power. Bullets are not whizzing above our heads, nor are bombs exploding in and around our homes. Nevertheless, we are engaged in a life and death struggle with forces capable of thrashing us inside out and sending us down into the depths of spiritual defeat. If we are not vigilant, there is, however, another piece of armor worthy of our consideration. It is the special underwear known as the temple garment, or garment of the holy priesthood, worn by the members of the Holy Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who have received their temple endowment. This garment, worn day and night, serves three important purposes. It is a reminder of the sacred covenants made with the Lord in his holy house. The reminder of your sacred covenants that you made. The reminder of your brainwashing indoctrination that you have made. It is why you can't take the underwear off. It is mental prison that they put you in the form of underwear. So it keeps you in line with these sacred covenants that you have made. It is a protective covering for the body. Number 2. Number 3, it is a symbol of the modesty of dress and living that should characterize all the lives of humble followers of Christ, which is why it's such a big deal to go from garments from here to here, because this used to be immodest. This used to be walking pornography. That's what leaders of the church called women showing their shoulders. We are walking pornography. So, but they just changed it. So, modesty of dress, I guess, now includes the shoulder. So this is how Mormons are taught to view the garment. It's a shielding, protective armor of God. It's a weapon against Satan and his influence in the ongoing true war that started in heaven against Satan, God and Satan, Jesus. It's a real war that continues to this day. Because remember where God sent Satan and all his people that followed him? Sent them to the earth to tempt us and to try us. And so if you have this piece of clothing on and believe in it, Satan cannot tempt you. But the minute you take it off, you're in Satan's power and you can be tempted and you can be harmed. So it's a fear-based mentality that keeps the faithful wearing the garment. It's also a sign to other members that you're a part of the inner club, right? If you are a person that Mormons look for that, they look for, is someone wearing their garments? Because they take it as a sign. If you're wearing your garments, then you're a good person. If you're not wearing your garments, then who knows if you're trustworthy, or, you know, you might lie, steal, cheat, whatever. But if you have your garments on, you're going to be good. You're not going to do those things. Robert G. Ingersoll wrote, nope, I'm not going to share that quote. Thank you. Okay. I've already talked about the inconveniences of the Mormon underwear. Breastfeeding women, you finally do now have a choice to have nursing garments, but I didn't have that with my first child that was born in the covenant. Alex, my oldest, was born outside of the covenant. He had to be sealed to us in the temple, but all our babies after that were considered born under the covenant, meaning we had been through the new and everlasting covenant, which is the first covenant you make when you are married and you're sealed. You agree to keep the temple garments on your body day and night, only take them off for sex, swimming, and showers. So the garments are hot spots for yeast infections for women. They are not easy for menstruation. They're a pain in the ass, honestly, because they're not underwear, and everything with wings, all these pads with wings, they just stick to the side of the garment, so they still can slip. It's just, they're not convenient for women. They're not made for our bodies, even though they say they are. But garments are a critical part of keeping members in check. It is a huge mental prison that and mind control that the church uses with its members. Making people wear specific underwear is a daily reminder of where your loyalties lie. Are you a good Mormon with the church and put your garments on? Or are you a bad Mormon and don't? It's mind control. Daily mind control. So it's a very psychological tactic that the church uses. The church absolutely knows what it's doing nowadays. And in the beginning, when Joseph made it, it was a way of keeping track of who's in the inner circle, who's practicing polygamy, and who's not. That's what it started for. It's a way of the church sifting through the wheat and the tares. Who are the good people and who are the people that can burn? Who are the people that don't get to rise with Jesus when he comes? So they're revealed from heaven, and they cannot change until they can, based on who is running the show, who is the top person in charge of the church. So it is a whim of the men in charge. I just want to see if there's anything else I want to bring. I'm almost at the hour. And then, of course, the new name in the temple, I've already discussed that in other videos, but it is associated with the garments, and it always bothered me that my husband got to know my name. The men get to know the women's names, but the wives are never allowed to know what their husband's new secret name is. It's just another way of control that the church practices. So I am going to talk about sex and Mormonism in maybe the next episode I do. Because truly, as good Mormons, you're not supposed to wear like lingerie, anything sexy. You're not supposed to go to bed naked. You know, you can have sex, but put your clothes back on. Put your garments back on. So a lot of people do sleep in Jesus jammies. That's another name for the garments that I didn't message because I didn't mention at the beginning. Jesus jammies, a lot of Mormons sleep in their underwear. So that's where that nickname came from. Sleeping naked is actually one of the best ways to sleep, according to Dr. Travis Bradbury. He says it will help reduce stress, increase the quality of your sleep, make you healthier, and even builds self-confidence. Kind of hard to do when you have a house full of children, but it would be nice one day to be able to sleep naked. And it helps you become more comfortable in your own skin. And I love the feeling of bare skin on sheets. It is not something Mormons are encouraged to do. So Mormon Church, with its unusual underwear, absolutely messes with the sex lives of its members. When do you ever get to see your spouse naked if you're always covered from here to your ankles, like in the early days of the church, right? But now, hey, we have garments that are sleeveless, which is now walking, pornography is now okay. I'm sure that's going to be exciting for Mormon couples. So I wore this underwear for 2 decades. We didn't start our marriage in the temple, so we started our marriage with sexy underwear. I could wear sexy underwear. I could wear lingerie, no big deal. But then once we went through the temple, if I was going to be a good Mormon, that had to stop and change. And I do remember times when we went on vacation and I didn't pack my garments, my Jesus jammies, and I wore, shorts and regular underwear. And there is that mental feeling of guilt if you're trying to be a good Mormon and you choose to not wear the garments. We had a bishop in Menden who was anal about garments and the temple. We're only under his leadership for 2 years, but he's the one that made us go back and redo the temple program. He wouldn't just sign off on our temple recommends because it had been a while, and he had seen me not wearing garments. I had been tattled on. It is a real thing in the Mormon church. I had been out gardening, weeding. We had a huge property in Menden, and I had taken my garments off and was just in a sleeveless top and short shorts. And so they knew I didn't have my garments on. Somebody told the bishop. And so when we chose to go back to the temple, it was like, no. And I also did dancing. I did Irish dancing. I remember having this conversation with him because he told me I had to wear my garments when I danced, when I practiced, or I could take them off for performing, but I had to wear them when I was practicing. And I said, that's ridiculous. I'm like, we wear tights, and I'm like, you'll see them. We wear short skirts in Irish dancing, and you will definitely see the garments. And how is that good? How is that modest? I'm like, let me wear what I'm supposed to wear. It was a fight with the bishop. That was my experience. Probably not everyone would have that experience, but the first presidency on December 9th, 2011. So I left in January of 2011 and quit wearing my garments. This message came that year in December to all the bishops of the church. And at the time, Thomas S. Monson was the current prophet of the church. And he said this about the garments. The garments should not be removed, either entirely or partially, to work in the yard or for other activities that can be reasonably done with the garment worn properly underneath the clothing. That was my bishop's mentality before he ever got this letter, was that he thought I should be able to, if not wear the short skirt. That's what he wanted me to do, is not wear the clothing that we were supposed to practice in, but to wear something else so that I could wear my garments underneath. This is the mentality of the Mormon church. You wear that sacred underwear all the time, and taking it off is the exception. So multiple bishops, multiple stake presidents drilled that idea into my head for the 20 years that I was a card-carrying Mormon, meaning I had a temple recommend and could go to the temple and practice in these ordinances. I wasn't great at following it, but I did do my best, and I did have guilt if I took the garments off, like I said, to go on a vacation and didn't wear them. So I vividly remember the exact moment in 2011 in January. I'd been wrestling with the church. Do I leave? Do I stay for 2 weeks? I could not authentically be myself and stay. It was just not an option. And I remember making that decision. I'm done with my garments. And taking them off and then just waiting for something really bad to happen to me. Because that was my mentality. That is what I had grown up with, was the idea that you take your garments off, you take off your secret shield, and Satan can get you. And nothing happened. And that was the best thing for me. After that mental prison box had been put around me, had been lifted by removing the garments and seeing that everything was still okay. Everything was still okay. And truly, the only thing that makes them special is your belief in them. It's belief that gives the garments power. It's belief that gives anything power. That's a really good thing to research. There's some, Greg Braden is a really good author who has written a lot of books about the power of belief and being able to heal yourself through belief. It is powerful. And if Mormons believe, they will see what they want to see. They will be shown the results of their belief. And beliefs can change. Beliefs should change, in my opinion. We are not meant to be born into one belief system and stay in that belief system our entire life and then die. I think questioning and curiosity and challenging our beliefs is so important. And that's what I want to leave with, is just the fact, I wore Mormon garments. I had physical experiences of being protected. Then I had physical experiences of being protected with just my prayers, little symbols of my prayers around me in a circle. And then the other experience of being on Vision Quest and just being in a circle in the sand. My belief giving that circle power that nothing could harm me while I was in that circle. Beliefs are what make the garments powerful. And you are the person that decides your beliefs. The power comes from you, not outside of you. God's power, Creator's power, it's within you. And you are the one that creates the protection in whatever symbol you choose to have, whether it's a crystal, whether it's a garment, whether it's a circle in the sand. You are powerful way more than the church would ever give you credit for. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. And then next time, I want to discuss the mind control around sexuality and sexual repressions that the church creates in its members. All right, thanks.